Hi, everyone. This is Ellis. Just wanted to let you know we're going to get started in just a couple of minutes. In the meantime, if you're on, if you wouldn't mind muting yourself, just to minimize any background noise. I'll get started in just a sec. All right, everyone, welcome to our webinar on course selection advice for U.S. trained tax students. I'm Ellis Duncan. I'm the director of the graduate tax program here at Georgetown. Let me get the next slide. There's me, there's my contact information. I'm going to be your primary academic advisor throughout the course of the academic year, and I look forward to working with all of you. A few words before we begin. Hopefully each of you is dialed in so that you can hear us, but if you could go ahead and mute yourselves, that would be really great so we can minimize the background noise during the course of the webinar. I'm going to talk for about 30 minutes or so, give or take, and then I'm going to take questions from the group. If you could, go ahead and type your questions into the chat box, and I'll read the question out and then try to answer it. You will get, so welcome to Georgetown and congratulations on your admission to the program. You're going to get a whole lot of correspondence from various offices while you're a student here at the Law Center. What I do want you to be on the lookout for each month is that my primary way of communicating with you is through a newsletter that I dubbed Tax Notes. It comes in on the first business day of each month. So be on the lookout for this. This is where I attempt to synthesize all of the important information, the programming, the deadlines, everything that you should be thinking about in a given month. And that newsletter is delivered on the first business day of each month. So please be on the lookout for that. One useful piece of information that was delivered in the June edition of Tax Notes was that I created course selection guides for U.S. trained and foreign trained students. So the guide, I worked with the faculty pretty closely to put together the guide, which includes information about course requirements. It includes information about suggested courses, things we think all students should take while they're students and that tax practitioners should know. And then it suggests various ways to structure your schedule depending on your objectives, whether or not you're pursuing a certificate program. And I'm going to go through that a little bit later in the webinar. So final few words. I know that we have a very broad audience here. I know some of you are coming directly from a JV program. Some of you are part-time students that have some experience. Some of you have started your legal careers and are now switching into tax. And then we even have probably some executive LLM students who are completing the degree online. So there are various considerations for each of these individual groups. So I do encourage you all to make an appointment with me. I think the best thing about having this job that I've had for 6 or 7 years now is getting to know my students and seeing you all progress through your both the program and through your legal careers when you become practitioners and become ultimately very, very successful. And Georgetown is the starting point. And I'm here to work with you, and I really do want to get to know you. So I do encourage you to set up a time to meet with me, especially if you want to discuss your course selections and your career goals. This is my email address, and again, happy to talk to you and hope to get to know you all and work with you all during the course of the academic year. So let's get started. I'm going to start with the actual mechanics of registration. You all should have received an email from LLM Academic Services that talks about course registration and deadlines. There is a period that we like to call preferred registration, which will open up next Thursday on June the 20th and will close on Monday, July the 8th at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. So a few words about preferred registration. First of all, this is your first opportunity to register for courses, but not your last. You will get a chance later between August 5th when live registration opens and all the way up until September the 10th at 3 p.m. to finalize your schedule. So what you submit during the preferred registration period can be changed. So you might change your mind after you've made your course selections, and that's perfectly fine. A lot of times people, what you originally intend to take, you'll get to campus, you'll go through orientation, you might sit in on a few classes, and your goals could change, and you're allowed to change your schedule, and that's completely fine. Another thing about preferred registration is that all requests by incoming LLM students are processed at the same time. So you don't have to rush to get in and register on June 20th. You don't want to miss that July 8th deadline, but you won't have any more priority. So I encourage all of you just to take your time, speak with me about your course selections, really kind of consider, both what you want to take, when you want to take it, and what your objectives are on the other side of the program, because I always feel like, academic advising and career advising go hand in hand. So it's important to consider where you think you might want to be or what you want to do after the program. And then your course selections should come from those considerations. So do take your time. I would encourage you again, as I said before, to set up an appointment with me, and even if just to be a sounding board for you, to help you navigate our very, very extensive curriculum. And so again, selections during the preferred registration are not final. You'll have about a month between August and September to adjust for the fall semester. You'll have all the way up until January the 21st to change your spring semester. You will register for both semesters, but if history is any indication, a lot of times you'll get into the program and after you start getting into your first semester classes, you'll definitely be tweaking what you take in the spring. So what you think you want to take now in the spring semester, even though you will register, will likely change. So you'll have the chance to do that a little bit later. Last thing I want to say about the registration process is that the very, very good news for tax students is that we rarely, if ever, run waiting lists on tax courses. This is not necessarily true if you're taking your classes online. There could be some waiting lists, but for classroom seats, generally, if you're coming to class and taking classes in person, There aren't that many waiting lists in tax, so we've tried to get everything into the right size room and get the enrollment numbers right. This has been a process that I have worked on for the last several years, and I think we're doing a pretty good job. So don't worry too much about trying to register for something later. Usually there will be seats. The one thing I do want to note is that if you want to take a non-tax class, when you go through preferred registration, you'll have to rank your selections. I would rank the non-tax classes first if you are taking any. There's not that many room in there won't be a lot of room for non-tax classes in your schedule, but if you do have a non-tax class, I would rank that first because, as I mentioned, the tax classes don't fill up, but there could be limited seats for LLM students in other classes. But anyway, let me move on from registration, and now I'm going to talk about the program requirements. So for the U.S. trained students, you will need to complete 24 academic credits. 20 of those credits must be tax specialization credits. If you want to see, it's actually pretty easy to determine what is a tax class and what isn't. Tax classes, I think all of them have the word tax in the title, but if you want to see what counts as a tax class, you should go to the online curriculum guide. You can sort classes by the graduate program cluster under the taxation LLM degree. So you can see that way what counts as a tax class. If you're an online student in the executive program, not all of our tax classes are offered online, but to see what is offered online, you can sort classes by the executive tax LLM in the graduate program cluster. Credit limits. No, first of all, let me just say a couple of words about externships. I know there's a lot of interest in externships, and I think that is probably one of the primary reasons a lot of you are here is the opportunity to do an externship. Actually, this year, U.S. trained students can do 2 externships, one in the fall, one in the spring, which is great news, and I highly encourage you to consider doing an externship or even 2 externships if you can do it. I'm going to host a webinar in July. This webinar is all things academic and registration and course selections. Next month's webinar will be the job search and career considerations, where we'll talk about the process of applying for externships. A couple things on the externships, they don't actually count towards the 20 tax specialization requirements. So if you want to do a couple of externships, the rest of your courses should be tax courses because you'll need to get to that 20 credit number of tax specialization credits. The other thing about externships is you don't add them now. Basically, you'll apply for, what you'll do now is you'll register for the entire academic year. You'll just register for courses, and if you apply and successfully receive an externship offer, you can add that to your schedule later and then just drop a course. So it's a pretty easy, straightforward process. I'll talk about externships later. Just the important thing is that you apply for those. There's a separate process. I'll talk about that later, and they don't count towards the tax specialization credits required. And so finally, credit hour limits, no more than 13 credits for full-time students. You'll understand why why we have these limits when you get here, because the tax LLM degree is a significant amount of work, and 13 credits will keep you more than busy. So that's why we have these limits. We rarely grant, sometimes we grant part-time students the ability to take more than 7 credits, but full-time students, you definitely can't take more than 13 credits. So keep them in mind. Certainly when you register for classes, only register for up to 13 credits, because anything beyond that won't be added to your schedule. Okay, so those are the program requirements. So let me talk a little bit about, I'm going to talk about required courses now, and then I'm going to talk about recommended courses. So talking about required courses. There are 3 of them: Corporate Income Tax 1, Income Tax Accounting, and Basic Principles of Finance. Let me just address each of these separately. One of them, Corporate Tax 1, is the first requirement. A lot of you might have taken a course like this in your JD program. The course would cover, basically Corporate Tax 1 covers corporate operations, everything from formations to dissolutions to everything in between. If you've taken a course like this in your JD program and received a grade B or better, you can waive out of the Corporate Tax 1 requirement. In order to do this, just send me a copy of your JD transcript and a link to the description of the course that's probably found on your law school's website. I'll then note the waiver on your record. I'll tell the registrar's office that I've approved a waiver. And please do this by September the 10th, which is the end of the add drop period for the fall semester. So income tax accounting, there's a lot of confusion about income tax accounting. So I frequently get emails from students saying, I'm a CPA, I have an accounting degree, I've taken accounting courses, and all of this. I want to stress that we almost never waive income tax accounting. This is not an accounting course. This is a tax. This is not a financial accounting course. This is a tax accounting course. This covers concepts under the Internal Revenue Code, including cash and accrual, methods of accounting, capitalization, amortization, depreciation, deferred payment sales, accounting periods and methods. These are, again, Internal Revenue Code concepts and not financial GAAP concepts. So that's why the only courses I've ever seen that are similar are at NYU, and I think there might be one at Florida as well. But if you didn't take this kind of course at one of those schools, I haven't seen a course ever that meets the requirements. So that particular requirement is seldom waived. One good thing this year, so resident students can take income tax accounting online this year. We have a very nicely designed course taught by Professor Smiley that he liked it so much. It was originally just for our online students. He liked it so much that he wanted to offer resident students the chance to take income tax accounting online, which you can do. So if you register for Professor Smiley's income tax accounting class, the class is entirely online. So you can complete the course at your own pace. You'll take a take-home exam at the end of the semester, and there are no official meeting times for this class. He will hold office hours to the extent you have questions about the material, but just so you know, you can actually take income tax accounting. All students can take income tax accounting online. And so finally, there's Basic Principles of Finance. This is a 0-credit online course, and it's required of all students who matriculate into the tax program. You must take this course in your first semester in residence as a student. This course will automatically be added to your schedule, so you don't actually need to register for it. The good news about Basic Principles of Finance is, well, I guess the not so good news is that a lot of times students with accounting or finance degrees ask to waive out of it. There isn't a waiver, but if you feel like you understand the material and you do have a business, accounting, or finance background, you've been exposed to the concepts, I would just glance at the syllabus and you can move right to the final exam without actually watching the videos. No waiver is given for this course, but you can basically waive it by passing the exam. That shows you understand the material. You can actually get a jump on this class before you get to campus, and I certainly encourage you to do that if you can, because you'll have plenty going on once you get here between all of your classes and all of the various activities. If you do want to get a head start on this, you can take the class, watch the videos, and take the final exam before you get here, please refer back to my June tax notes email, where I have a link to a page where you can sign up to go ahead and get access early. So please, if you do want to do that, go back to you want to knock it off before you get here, go to that tax notes email and fill out the form, which will allow you to take to get a head start of the course before you get here. And in any event, you must complete the final exam for the course by the end of the exam period, which is Saturday, December the 21st. Let me see. Just a note on course prerequisites. A lot of courses, pretty much all courses, require you to take federal income taxation, or they list federal income taxation as a prerequisite. Most of the students here have taken that course in the JD program. If you didn't take it and you're taking the online version of that course, that satisfies the prerequisite. Some other classes require things like corporate tax as a prerequisite. If you're taking that at the same time in the first semester, basically if you take a tax class concurrently with a class, that satisfies the prerequisite. All right, so I'm going to move on to suggested curricula. So I want to make before I start talking about each of these classes, I want to make a couple of points. First of all, I know that, again, each of you is different, and so some of this advice applies to you and some of it doesn't. Again, so I mentioned that we have many different types of students that come in with varying levels of experience and come to the program with various objectives. So that's why I do suggest before, the advice I'm giving doesn't necessarily apply across the board to all students. So that's why I suggest that you meet with me to discuss what you think you might want to take. The second point, I'm going to make this orientation, and I always just keep making this point, or try to make it as much as possible. You don't have to have everything figured out right now. You don't have to know what area of tax you want to specialize in. You don't really have to know, whether you want to work for a law firm, accounting firm, the government, all of the different options that are available, where you want to be geographically. You can use the LLM year to figure all of that out. And it's actually a great feature about the program is that you can take a broad variety of classes and then sort of figure out where you want to be after the program based on what you learn in this year. So it's completely okay if you're a little bit confused right now. We have so many courses. You don't have to have it figured out. What I recommend just generally is if you don't have it figured out right now, that in the fall semester you stick to what I call more foundational courses, which is much of what I have listed here. And then in the spring semester, after you've taken a full semester and been exposed to multiple areas, then you sort of start to hone in on what you think you want to take based on what you learned in that first semester. You have the opportunity to take more advanced classes in the spring. We have advanced seminars. You can go deeper and then take more specialized or niche courses in the spring. So anyway, coming back to the suggested courses, again, some programs have a lot of required courses. We don't. We only require the 3 courses I mentioned in the previous slide. And the reason is, again, what I've been saying is that you all come with different levels of experience. We have a large class and it's very diverse. But there are certain classes that we think that and when I say we, I mean me and the tax faculty, think that students should have a grasp on these subjects before they leave the tax program. And so I've kind of listed what we think you should probably take while you're here. The first one is taxation of property transactions. Now, I don't necessarily think that all of you need this class. If you had a pretty comprehensive federal income tax course in law school, a lot of the material covered in this class, which includes sales, exchanges of property, capital gains and losses, like-kind exchanges, and other non-recognition provisions in the code. A lot of you had that in your federal income tax course in law school. And if you took that course pretty recently, like within the last couple of years, you may not need property transactions. If you haven't had a federal income tax course in the last couple of years, or that course was taken pre-tax reform, and certainly if you're taking the online course, I would absolutely recommend the taxation of property transactions. So of course, corporate tax, of course you should take corporate tax. That's why it's a required course. Just to go over the two different versions of the course, we have corporate tax 1 and corporate tax 2, and then we have a course called corporate taxation, which is 4 credits. Basically, the difference between these courses, corporate 1 is what I said before, it's corporate operations. Corporate tax 2, it's corporate reorganizations, basically sections 368 and 355 of the Internal Revenue Code. And corporate taxation, the 4 credit class, covers what is covered in corporate tax 1 and what is covered in corporate tax 2. Or you can take those 2 classes together, which LLM students frequently do, corporate tax 1 in the fall, corporate tax 2 in the spring. Corporate 1 is required. Corporate 2 is a good idea if you wanted to go into like tax planning, either in the M&A or international tax space. So it's kind of a highly recommended course if you want to work with business entities. Partnerships, again, extremely important. I think this is the class that I almost universally stress that everyone needs, even if you took it at the JD level. I really think you should take it again. More than 60% of business income is generated through pass-through entities. There are new provisions in the 2017 Tax Act that apply to pass-throughs. So I think you really should consider taking this again. You'll definitely see partnerships in practice no matter what you do. I think this is a pretty standard foundational class. You can take it in the fall or the spring. Ditto with international tax. You can take that in the fall or the spring. We offer a 3-credit kind of comprehensive course, and then we offer the individual inbound and outbound international tax classes. The reason I think that everyone should take this course is because, every transaction has cross-border elements. You're frequently dealing with foreign entities and foreign investors when you're doing tax planning or even in controversy matters. So it's a good idea to have a base of how U.S. transactions are taxed abroad and then vice versa. Tax procedure, this is a little less important for students. This is very important for students who want to go into controversy, who want to work for the IRS or in government. It's probably lower on the list of things I suggest for people who want to go into planning, but I think it's a really good idea, especially the administrative practice course, to get a handle on like what practice before the IRS looks like what are the rules for that. I think it's actually helpful even if you're a tax planner. So just as a foundational matter, I recommend this course. I would recommend the administrative practice course unless you think you want to do litigation, and then in that case, I probably would recommend you take both administrative practice and litigation. Externship, really important. Students universally tell me that the externships that they have here, and we have so many amazing opportunities. It is for many students the highlight of their experience as a student, because you get to get out there, you have work experience, it enhances your resume, you get a glimpse into a practice area or a government entity, or you just learn so much and you meet so many people through doing an externship. So again, I highly recommend you do that. Do an externship, at least one, if not two. We just have so many great opportunities here. More on externships later. And then finally, course or seminar requiring the completion of a paper. When you get into practice, you might not have the opportunity to write, to really drill down on a particular topic or possibly try to get something published. But if you can do that, if you can get academic credit and create a paper that you can get published, that's a great thing to do. It's a great way to enhance your resume while you're a student, and this is the opportunity to do it before you're tied up with working for a firm on billable matters. You can do it as, again, part of a course or seminar, or you can actually do what's called a graduate independent research paper, where you get 2 credits. You can work under the direct supervision of a faculty member. It can be a full-time faculty member. It can be an adjunct faculty member. So I'm going to move on to certificates now. So we have 4 different certificate programs. I have them listed here, and international taxation, employee benefits, estate planning, and state and local tax. You can earn this just one certificate in conjunction with the LLM degree. I've listed all of the faculty advisors for each of the certificates on this slide. We'll go over the requirements, or I can go over the requirements with you one-on-one. They're in the degree guide, so you should be able to read what the requirements for each of the certificates are. But if you want sort of specialty advising in one of these areas, that's why we have faculty advisors who can sort of tell you a little bit more about the practice area, where the opportunities are to see if a specialty certificate is right for you. So I want to say a few words about certificates. I think they're great for students who really understand what they want to do after the program. If you're pretty confident that you want to practice in one of these areas and that you've had some exposure to the area, you've taken at least one class in the area, you have worked in the area, you have at least done some networking with professionals in the area, certificate programs are great. I do want to stress, however, that you absolutely do not need a certificate to get a job. Now, certificates in certain areas like employee benefits and estate planning are helpful if you want to work in those areas, but you don't actually need to do a certificate to get a job. It's completely okay to take a broad range of classes. If you think you want some exposure to an area, you can take 1 or 2 classes in one of these areas and then decide later if you want to complete the certificate, which you can do after the LLM. That's completely fine. Because sometimes, students will start a certificate program and decide they want to do something completely different. And so I don't recommend certificates for everyone unless you have a pretty clear idea. And again, you don't need them to have a job. I know you've probably heard about Georgetown's amazing placement statistics. We had 95% of the class of 2018 employed by graduation. I think our numbers will be pretty similar this year. So there are lots and lots of opportunities. I'm knocking on wood here because I say that there are lots of opportunities if the economy stays, humming along as it is. That is a big factor in that. But right now, we're great opportunities in all kinds of areas. So it's okay to use the LLM year to figure out your path. So so I just want to talk just mechanics of certificates. If you have signed up for a certificate, you can, it's already going to be added to your degree program. It'll show up on your record after add drop is finished in September. If you want to add a certificate and you didn't apply for the particular certificate, you can just do that by sending me an email. I'll get you enrolled in the certificate program. Again, and you can change your certificate or opt out later. You can do this either before, if you want to change or add a certificate, again, anytime before September the 10th, you just let me know if you want to change it. If you get into a certificate program but want to drop it later and kind of focus on taking a broader selection of courses, that's fine too. You just need to let me know that before add drop is finished by in the spring semester, which is January the 21st. So finally, I just want to talk a little bit about I know we might have some students in the executive LLM program who are doing the program online. So I just want to say a few specific things to this group. My colleague, Cynthia Rockwell, is our director of online programs. She is a fantastic resource. I do all of the academic advising for our online students, but she sort of runs our online programs. So she is a great resource, will be your first point of contact. You probably already heard from her, but if not, there's her information, and feel free to reach out to her at any time with questions about the program. We need to know who is in a classroom and who is not, and who's on campus and who's not. So we have specific sections, even though a class might be offered to both resident on-campus students and online students. You will register for the online version, which is a Law D section of a course. So if you're taking a course online, make sure you're registered for the right section of it. And then finally, because we don't offer all of our courses online, we're looking to add more and more each year, but they're not offered all online at this point. If you're local or you can come into class, you may attend classes in person. You just need to let Cynthia know about that so she can enroll you. If you do take a class on campus, you will be expected to attend class in person, and some professors have pretty strict attendance policies. So just keep that in mind if that's what you're doing. So again, I'm going to leave it open, the chat. So if you have a question, type it into the chat function, which I'm going to pull up right here. If you want to make an appointment with me, I am more than happy to speak with you individually. Again, I really do want to get to know you. Congratulations on your admission to the program. I look forward to working with you, but I'm going to leave the chat room open for at least 10 minutes or as long as it takes to get through the questions. So feel free to type into the chat function if you have a question. All right, so tax accounting, and this is income tax accounting, I assume. Executive online students. Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think a lot of students who are doing it part-time, I think it depends on the student, but I think getting some of the basics, like the required courses, out of the way with early, like corporate tax 1 and income tax accounting, is a good idea. So again, I think it depends on how quickly you're going through the program and whether you want to specialize, but usually, just generally speaking, the first 2 classes, if you're doing it part-time, that I tend to recommend are income tax accounting and corporate tax, because they're both required, and I consider them to be pretty foundational types of courses. Okay, so Introduction to Federal Income Tax Research and Writing. So this course is for our students pursuing a Master of Studies in Law and Taxation, the degree designed for working professionals in tax who don't have a JD degree. This is a required course, and it is required that you take it in your first semester as a student. If you're an executive online student, I think in the past, and you'll have to confer with Cynthia Rockwell, whether usually we'll open up some seats for this course for non-MSL students, meaning like executive LLM students who want to take the research and writing, but it will be on a space available basis, because we need to make sure that all of our MSL students are able to register. Oh. All right, so a question on time to complete the program. So part-time students generally should complete the program in 3 years. If you need more than that, I would just contact Cynthia to request more time. Since we offer courses in the summer, it's pretty easy to I mean, you have plenty of opportunities to complete the program in 3 years, but if you need additional time, I would just reach out to Cynthia directly if you think that you're going to need more time, and we can, on a case-by-case basis, extend it by however many semesters, but in any event, no longer than 5 years. All right, that seems to be all the questions. So again, thank you all for participating. Oh, it's not, okay. Online students that are not enrolled in campus classes attend classes if there's room available. Yes. So yes, you can attend classes in person. You just need to let Cynthia know, and Cynthia's information I've given you earlier. You just need to let her know. Yeah. So okay, sorry, I read this question wrong. So online students that are not enrolled in campus classes and can attend class in room if there's room available, yes. I would just contact the professor just to make sure there are seats in the room and just say you want to sit in on the class, and you are welcome to sit in on as many classes as you want, assuming there's space in the room, and there usually is, but that question should be directed to your professor. All right, I think we're at the end here. Again, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it and look forward to working with you all. Have a great rest of your week, and look forward to hearing from you. If you need to contact me, please do. And if not, look forward to seeing many of you at orientation in a couple of months. Thanks. Have a good day.